We are gathered here today to commemorate the Battle of Midway. We are also here to honor and pay homage to those who lost their lives 80 years ago as a result of a 4-day battle. On this day of remembrance, we are particularly honored to have gathered with us representatives from our ally Japan, as well as our other allies and partners. To that end, we are privileged to have with us today two distinguished guests who will provide their remarks. Please welcome our first guest, U.S. Navy Captain Brian Iber, Commanding Officer, Camp Lemonnier, Djibouti.
Good morning. I wasn't sure I was going to be a guest. I feel like I'm here all the time, but that's good. Ambassador, thank you for joining us. Major General Shawley, DCM Andrea Tomasevich, it's close. Colonel Kuwakara, and all our other base commanders, appreciate you joining us. I do deeply appreciate everyone taking time out of their busy schedules today to participate in Camp Lemonier's Battle of Midway 80th anniversary commemoration. When reflecting on World War II, we often recall the attacks on Pearl Harbor, the storming of Normandy Beach, and the Battle of Iwo Jima. Stories of these conflicts are retold through books and films, and they help us remember the brave sailors, Marines, soldiers, and airmen on all sides who fought and died protecting their country. However, one battle, which is a 3-day conflict in the Pacific, would turn the tides of World War II's fight for naval supremacy and is also worthy of special recognition, and that's the Battle of Midway. As most everyone knows, on December 7th, 1941, the Japanese Navy inflicted a devastating strike on the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor, effectively crippling naval combat power in that theater. With a stroke of luck, the fledgling U.S. Navy carrier fleet was at sea, conducting exercises, and therefore was not damaged. The U.S. would use the carriers and the remaining ships that we had to conduct small strikes on Japanese positions in the year that followed. One example of this would be the famous Doolittle raid, which would attack the Japanese homeland with a small number of B-25 bombers off U.S. Navy carriers. 4th June 2022 marks the 80th anniversary of one of the most historically significant naval victories. The U.S. Navy's determination, zeal, and valor at the Battle of Midway, which was a multi-day engagement fought between June 3rd and 7th, 1942, blunted the Imperial Japanese Navy's striking force and its advance across the Pacific. Naval strategy in this conflict leveraged the power of our aircraft carriers, gaining sea control and shifting the paradigm of maritime power projection to the carrier force. The U.S. Navy would use intelligence from intercepted Japanese signals to learn of the upcoming attack on Midway Island, and Admiral Nimitz sorted the carriers Yorktown, Enterprise, and Hornet to intercept the Japanese fleet that was about to attack Midway. The Yorktown had been seriously damaged in the conflict a month before in the Battle of the Coral Sea. Was actually thought to have been sunk, but was repaired amazingly quickly, just enough to get it out in time for this battle. As the fleets met Midway, the Japanese fleet consisted of 4 heavy aircraft carriers, 2 light aircraft carriers, 2 seaplane carriers, 7 battleships, 15 cruisers, 42 destroyers, and 10 submarines. So not a small fleet. The American fleet consisted of 3 carriers, 8 cruisers, 18 destroyers, and 19 submarines. And we also had some air power off of the island of Midway, which was pretty much destroyed by the time this battle started, the sea battle. The U.S. Navy would locate the Japanese fleet, engage it in battle. By mid-morning, the United States had lost 99 aircraft with barely any damage to the Japanese fleet. This is in large part due to the quality of the Japanese aircraft. The Zero was far superior to our aircraft at the time, and also the skill of their pilots. Another contributing factor was the faulty American torpedoes that had not been thoroughly tested and tried, and frankly failed quite often. On the 4th of June, the Americans delivered a devastating blow to the Japanese Navy, though. Torpedo squadrons 8, 6, and 3 made first wave attacks on the enemy carriers, and despite heavy casualties, the American squadrons subjected the carriers to devastating dive bomber attacks. By the end of the battle, the Americans sank 4 fleet carriers, all of which had attacked Pearl Harbor, and 1 heavy cruiser. The U.S. lost a destroyer and the USS Yorktown. But the American victory at Midway gave U.S. forces the time to gather strength and leverage the vast production capability of the United States and later press the offensive. Midway reminds us that sound and timely intelligence is necessary to achieve victory. And the battle also secured naval aviation as being a vital capability to maintain maritime superiority and ultimately win wars. It was carrier air power that displaced naval gunnery as the primary means of delivering naval ordnance and securing the victory at sea. Ironically, this was partly due to the success of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, as their gunnery on their battleships was far superior to ours, and we were still relying on Mahanian-style tactics where fleets would engage within sight, firing their guns from their battleships. The battle also reinforced that it takes teamwork from an entire organization to win. This victory simply couldn't have been possible without tireless maintenance crews fixing airplanes, sailors sweating it out in countless engine and fire rooms, caring for the wounded, flying patrol planes, steaming in cruisers, and the damage control teams who kept our ships afloat. All who fought in this were heroes. The Japanese fleet lost 4 carriers, heavy cruiser, 320 airplanes, and also 3,000 Japanese sailors and airmen. The victory also cost the United States nearly 150 aircraft and 317 sailors. Today we chose to wear the khaki uniform because at the time the Navy did not have flight suits, and so those that got in the airplanes would put on their khakis and go to fly. The Battle of Midway demonstrated the ingenuity and power of American forces in the air, on land, and sea, and 80 years later we celebrate the victory that turned the tide in the Pacific. However, we also celebrate and draw inspiration from the reconciliation and mutual respect for freedom and democracy that forged the enduring alliance between the United States and Japan. Once foes, today we stand shoulder to shoulder with our ally Japan to ensure peace and security in the AFRICOM, CENTCOM, and Indo-PACOM regions. Colonel Kuwakara, who's on the front row right there, is commander of the Japanese Self-Defense Force Base, which is literally right across the runway, has become a person who I honestly like to see at all events and have developed a friendship with. In addition, the fact that the Japanese ambassador and retired Vice Admiral Umio is speaking here today is a testament to this reconciliation and friendship. Today, I ask that you remember those on both sides who fought so courageously during this monumental battle. As the fight for freedom continues, I ask you to keep your hearts and heads high in support of the missions of the U.S. Navy and our coalition partners and allies in the ongoing effort to keep international waters safe and free. I'm truly honored to be joined by so many of our international partners today. Our remembrance of the Battle of Midway illustrates how our battle achievements in innovation, intelligence, and courage serve as a model and as an inspiration as we face the challenges of today and beyond. Thank you for joining me, and God bless.
Captain Weber, thank you for your remarks. Please welcome our second keynote speaker, the Honorable Man of the Sea, Mr. Umio Matsuka, Japanese Ambassador to Djibouti.
Hey, good morning, Captain Aber, General Shawley, and the senior officers and men and women of the service. Thank you very much for inviting me today. As Ambassador of Japan, I'm extremely honored to be invited to this ceremony of commemorating the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Midway. As a retired admiral, however, I'm not necessarily happy to talk about a battle in that our predecessors were totally defeated. But I want to tell you how the lessons learned of this battle is instructive for us living in 2022. This battle became the turning point of the war in the Pacific. The major reason, among others, of the failure of Japan was that the United States Pacific Fleet had successfully decoded the crypto of Japanese Navy. A famous story tells that the Pacific Fleet Signal Intelligence Team believed that AF, Alpha Foxtrot, in the Japanese messages is the target of Japanese aircraft carrier strike group, and it might be Midway. In an effort to alleviate any doubt, the US intelligence team made the commanding officer of Midway base to send a message telling that the water distillation plant of the base had suffered serious damage and fresh water was needed immediately. Shortly after the transmission, an intercepted Japanese intelligence report indicated that Alpha Foxtrot is short of water. Deception in the war is not unusual. A great Chinese strategist, Sun Tzu, in the 5th century before Christ, wrote in his book, The Art of War, that fighting is cheating. In the news broadcast on a daily basis, you see our days brim with a massive amount of deception, false information, and fake news, not to mention the war in Ukraine. Indeed, the magnitude is currently more affecting in the name of information warfare, given the emergence of cyberspace as a new warfare domain. As a result, the demarcation between war and peace, as well as between military and non-military, have been diluted, if not disappeared. Not only in the battlefield, but also in all the actions during the peacetime, it has become truly difficult what to believe and who to trust. In the modern war, whether to deter or execute, you need allies and partners of like mind. Trust is the binder, joint, or glue to get them together. In these days where the trust is hard to gain, how we manage the partnership is something we really think seriously. Albeit an incredibly bloody war, Japan and the United States is now the most trustworthy allies in the world. It is an amazing history of not only reconciliation, but also the trust building between two countries and between two armed forces. We have to be reminded how much efforts have been made by the government and the people of Japan and the United States to reach this stage. And we should continuously make every effort to further develop our relationship. Very luckily, here in Djibouti, two bases are located side by side. Why don't we maximize this great opportunity? Ladies and gentlemen, there is a Japanese Shinto temple for peace in Tokyo, built 153 years ago, named Yasukuni Jinja, in which all the souls of war dead are enshrined. When I'm in Tokyo, I go there every morning on the way of my workout and pray for the souls of those who sacrificed themselves for the nation, rest in peace and comfort. Our robust relationship owes its origin to the fighting spirit and sacrifice of those who were in the battlefield, to include the Midway. I would like to thank to those patriots who gave us today's great partnership, and I am redetermined to make it better and stronger, whether as ambassador or old salty sailor. Thank you very much.
Ambassador Suga, thank you for your kind remarks. Captain Iber and Ambassador Suga, thank you for your thoughtful and inspiring remarks. In the Navy, we have two traditions that we hold annually. In October, we observe the Navy's birthday to celebrate its establishment by Congressional Congress in 1775. And then in June, we pause to acknowledge a moment in history when our ancestors proved the nation and its faith and trust in our Navy is worthwhile. The Battle of Midway is often referred to as the turning point in the Pacific during World War II, where the campaign in the Pacific had a momentum shift and our Navy's defense posture became an insurmountable offensive posture. We at Camp Lemonnier also know that not only was history made at this small island, but modern naval warfare itself was changed, and that the strategy behind the victory at Midway was something more. We at Camp Lemonnier recognize that while Midway was a turning point in the Pacific, it was also a pivotal point for information warfare. For cryptologic sailors, Midway is also seen as a moment in history where, again, the Navy proved itself to be adaptive and cutting edge in how it uses sailors' technical skills and then applies them to the challenges it faces our nation and Navy. To achieve victory at Midway, our cryptologic ancestors demonstrated that they are willing to be both persistent and creative when confronted with a challenge. Today, as we gather and commemorate the significance of the Battle of Midway and those who served in it, we also celebrate the battle's evolving legacy. Today, we honor the veterans of Midway. We also honor the significance Midway plays as a part of our Navy's history. Today, we consider the Battle of Midway's legacy, which was established the week of June 4th to 7th in 1942, when warfighters in the Pacific engaged in battle after having prepared the battle space using the timeliness intelligence, calculated the odds, and then confidently moved into the fold after having chosen the terms of engagement. Today's event demonstrates that former adversaries can become close and trusted friends. Even though we remember that painful chapter in both our respective histories, it also reminds us that things can blossom into a fruitful and beautiful relationship in the future. As we reflect on the strength and fortitude exhibited by those auspicious days, we must take time to pause and remember those who paid the highest price on both sides by laying down their lives 80 years ago today. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the benediction by Chaplain Young and remain standing for a moment of silence, followed by the playing of taps by our bugler, Wine One Horn.
I invite you to pray according to your tradition as I pray according to mine. Let us pray. Eternal God, strong and true, we bow before you in humble recognition of our dependence on you. We thank you for this opportunity to have gathered here this day to take a moment to remember and honor those who have gone before us in the fight for freedom and democracy. The Battle of Midway was a turning point in our nation's resolve in the Second World War, and we owe so much of that success to the changing tides of factors beyond our control, but not beyond yours. Today we remember those lives lost for home and country, our fellow Americans, but we also remember those who gave their lives fighting for their home and their country of Japan, as well as all those men and women who laid down their lives throughout the Great War. While war may sometimes be necessary, it is always regrettable and comes with a great price: the crimson blood shed in the struggle between brothers and sisters in the global human family. May we never forget that the lives we enjoy today are made possible by the sacrifices of those who have gone before us. May our actions give honor to their sacrifices by always being upright and just. May we respect all people with the dignity they deserve as fellow human beings. May we strive to be courageous, prudent, and virtuous men and women so that we might never defame or desecrate the memory of those warriors who have fought so valiantly. Give us the fortitude to act with justice. Give us the strength of character to forgive when necessary, and give us the wisdom to see clearly the right way on this journey we call life. We implore your blessing upon us, upon our families, upon our respective countries, and upon the entire world this day as we pray. Amen.
Company, attention. This concludes today's formal ceremony. Thank you very much for attending and for all your continued support of Camp Lemonier's mission. 11D will remain open to conduct a social event featuring a Japanese drum band performance introduced by Colonel Kuwahara. Company dismissed.
I introduced Colonel Kasu Kuwakara a little bit earlier, who's the Japanese commander of their base. And he had offered to play for us a very special drum ceremony. I've seen it before, and it's fantastic. I really enjoyed it, and I was very happy that he could bring them over here and play for us. So Colonel Kuwakara would like to say a few words, and then we will have the treat listening to the drums. Thank you.
Good morning, Major General Shuli, Captain Iber, commanders, and all the participants from Camp Lemonnier, Ambassador and retired Admiral Otsuka. On behalf of all the Japanese soldiers stationed in Djibouti, I would like to express my sincere appreciation for letting us join this very important memorial ceremony. I deeply recognized again the importance of overcoming the past. 80 years ago, Japanese and US forces fought each other, but now we are cooperating together for world peace and regional stability, not only in East Asia, but also even in East Africa. It is a tremendous achievement based on our shared basic values of both democratic countries. Today, in order to deepen our friendship and to stimulate your interest in Japanese culture, I brought a Japanese drums team of the base. I want to emphasize that it's not just for entertainment or just for fun. This kind of instrument has been used also in the Japanese religious rituals. So their performance here today will be a part of prayer for all victims of all countries during World War II. So now I pass this microphone to our moderator, Lieutenant Commander Ujita, newly assigned Protocol PL officer from today.
Thank you for your attention. Today, we'd like to show you a music program of wadaiko, the Japanese traditional drums. In Japan Self-Defense Force, as a part of extracurricular activities, there are a large number of wadaiko teams belonging to some camp and base. Among them, today 3 members of the team Takikawa Shibuki Daiko, coming from Camp Takikawa, play its performance. The title of first number is The Shiki Drums. This music expresses the 4 seasons Shiki, changing in their homeland Hokkaido Prefecture, the northern island of Japan, with sounds and actions. Please enjoy their performance. それではどうぞ。 The next number is titled Torrent, the Streaming Drums. This number is composed from the image of Ishikaru River flowing in Hokkaido. The drum beats express the river stream, which is sometimes violent and sometimes gentle. Please enjoy their performance. それではどうぞ。Now, I hope you enjoyed the music program of Wadaiko. Lastly, let me introduce the team members. From the left side, Sergeant Private Sato Shoma. Sergeant Otobe Masaki. Sergeant Abe Takayuki. This concludes the program. Thank you.